Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us virtually here at Chamber Gold member El Conquistador Tucson, a Hilton Resort. I'm Dave Perry, President and CEO of the Greater Oro Valley Chamber of Commerce, and this is New Directions for Business, moving beyond the pandemic. Before we begin, on behalf of everyone here in Greater Tucson, I want to express our heartfelt thanks to the brave men and women fighting the Bighorn Fire right out our back doors. Hundreds of people have come to Oro Valley and Greater Tucson from across the West to keep us safe and to protect our property. They're toiling in June heat here in Tucson and the difficult terrain of our beloved Santa Catalina Mountains. To them all we say our heartfelt thanks. Our special thanks as well to Otten Suarez, Lori Castro, and all the fine people here at El Conquistador Tucson who do a first-rate job for us every time we're on property. This is a unique moment. I'm sitting in a virtually distanced, let me rephrase that. I'm sitting in a physically distanced ballroom where we intended to have guests eating boxed lunches. As the number of cases of COVID-19 rose, we had to make a decision. People picked up boxed lunches at the front door this morning, and we are remote. We've got just very few people in the room today, and I want you to know that that decision had nothing to do with El Conquistador. This place is safe, and anyone who comes here is going to be treated extremely well and with the utmost care. I want to express our thanks as well to the people at PSAV who are getting you hooked in virtually today, and then to our new friends from the Scarrett Group who are putting together this excellent production. They got the guys in from Philadelphia, and I understand that tonight they're going to enjoy the Tucson equivalent of a Philly cheesesteak, and that of course would be a Sonoran dog. So thanks to them, thanks to all of you for being here with us today. We've got a great program. We're going to go to a commercial break. This is like a TV show, and then we'll get right back to it.
It's good to know some things haven't changed. We're still catching up with old friends. We're still going on dates. A Happy Meal still lives up to its name. We're still looking out for each other. We're still finding ways to say thank you, small as they may be. Even though a lot has changed, it's good to know a lot hasn't changed at all.
As the sun rises over the Oro Valley and shines upon El Conquistador, a spectacular new day is born. A celebration of life begins again in the desert Southwest. The day is yours. Make of it what you wish. Today we ride. Today we play. Today we rest. We do not do things here in an ordinary way. We reach back to our culture and reach forward to the next generation to celebrate what makes this land so great. We want you to experience what makes us so proud. Our way of life, our traditions, our music, our art, our people. What makes us different? We are uniquely Southwest.
Thanks for being back with us, ladies and gentlemen. The fires have added a smoky pall to what may be the most difficult moment any of us have ever experienced. The pandemic has changed the way we live, the way we work, the way we interact. Its accompanying recession has impacted every business and institution. We're here today to talk about it, to talk about how we survive it, to talk about what we're learning in this moment, and to ponder what may be ahead. We hope you'll leave these conversations equipped with the stamina and the optimism to survive this pandemic and the energy and enthusiasm to thrive beyond it. Let us begin. Our guests today are Lisa Lovallo, Vice President and Market Leader for Cox Communications Southwest Region, Mark Stapp, PhD, the Fred E. Taylor Professor of Real Estate at Arizona State University, and Tom Hebner, Senior Director for Real Estate, Facilities, and Site Services for Roche Tissue Diagnostics right here in Oro Valley. We plan to have 4 distinct conversations on various aspects of the moment, and we're going to start with a question to Mark. And Mark has written a paper that he entitled Sailing in Fog Without Radar. And I think it's apropos. I know that's what I'm doing at the Chamber. It's what we're all doing. We've never seen this before. Mark, welcome, first of all. Share what you mean by and what you're trying to communicate in Sailing in Fog Without Radar and what we should be doing and learning.
Well, thank you, Dave, and thank you for the Chamber in asking me to participate in this. I think what you're doing is what's most necessary at this time, and that is making sure that we remain, if not physically, at least socially connected. It's one of the things that I think will help all of us survive this. What you had to do over the last 2 days in making a decision to pivot and hold the program is completely virtual is a metaphor for what's been going on for the last several months. And as business owners, it's hard to make business decisions in these times because we simply don't know. And the reason that I titled that piece Sailing in Fog Without Radar is that we can't see. We can't see ahead of us. We can't see behind us very well anymore. And we have few things to give us guidance. So if you're a sailor, you know what you're taught to do when you're in fog is to slow down, be very quiet, and listen carefully for sounds that will give you a clue as to where you are, what's ahead of you and alongside of you. And I think that is what business owners have to do now, is they have to slow down and they have to listen. Because we don't know what the future holds. We don't know whether this is much longer term than we hope, whether we'll be done with this and will be a sharp V curve recovery, whether behaviors will change permanently or for a short time. And as a consequence, we've got to pay close attention to the people that we rely on for our business. So particularly your customers, but you also have employees, you have vendors, and you have the entire community that you exist within and that you help make a place. And listening to all of them carefully is, I think, the only thing you can do right now until you've got better information, and whether it's the smoke clearing from the fire or it's the fog clearing. I think that's one of the things that you're going to have to learn to do in this current environment. So that was the basis of it. It was, we can't really see.
Thanks, Mark. Lisa, you're guiding a relatively large business through the fog here in southern Arizona. How's your voyage so far?
Well, hello, Dave, and everyone out there. I wish I was there in person. That will happen someday in the future. Basically, our business has not stopped working or stopped operating. We've been one of those businesses that is an essential business, and therefore we've had to really kind of, with a lot of uncertainty, provide clarity to our employees and to our customers about what our primary value system is going to guide our behavior when we have the fog and the clouds. And that was number one, to protect our employees, and number two, to protect our customers, and to make every decision based on those two criterion. So we've done that. We've been able to keep our network up and running with a tremendous amount of change in how it's being used. Our employees have become extremely agile and very comfortable making adjustments on a moment-by-moment basis, given the circumstances on the ground or even at the home. And so, I think what we've been able to do is really trust our employees. I think we trusted our employees before, but we really had to walk the talk over the last 2.5, 3 months. And I think that that's been the key to our success, is we have a very competent, professional, motivated workforce who wants to do their job well. And if we listen to them to the point of slowing down and listening, which I think is a beautiful thing to remember, I think we did that well so that we could go fast and be agile when we needed to.
Thank you. Tom, welcome. Tom, Lisa alluded to it just a moment ago, the discussion about the benefit of reinforcing the fundamental values of our businesses. Why are we doing what we do? Would you talk for a minute, please, Tom, about that experience at Roche and how you're working with colleagues to enforce those and to reinforce those values?
Yeah, a great question, Dave. And I got to say the same thing about what Mark, really, that's such a great leadership principle. Listen, slow down and listen. Shouldn't take a pandemic to do that. But to your question, Dave, I think the great thing about what we're doing at Roche, I remind myself, my employees, our vendors, we're making cancer screening equipment and stains that actually tell you what type of cancer you have so you can treat the cancer. Those who know my background, you know, it's pretty cool to work for Nordstrom, Starbucks, REI. All those are great endeavors, fun. But boy, when you talk about cancer and we're actually saving patients' lives by the work we do, it's inspiring. It makes me spark when I jump out of bed every morning. And again, as I said, I have to kind of remind our employees, we're working morning, noon, and night, right? And you can get burned out pretty easy. But when you think about what we're doing, and again, that's why I say I have to remind them, it really puts a little wind in your sail. So back to what Mark said, listen to your employees, listen to the people, and you'll do well.
Mark, you have talked about 2 months, 2 quarters, and 2 years as benchmark periods during this crisis. I wondered if you'd elaborate a little bit by what you're referring to.
You know, the first thing we have to do, Dave, is figure out exactly what's going on. And as long as this appears to have been going on months now, we still don't know. And so I think we have another 2 months of getting information about the pandemic and also understanding what the government is going to do to continue to support the economy. And you and I have talked a little bit about this, is I don't know that we're going to know the full effect of this until we see the effect of either more stimulus or the retraction of some of the stimulus in the economy. So it's going to take us at least another 2 months. I think it will then take us 2 quarters having a better understanding of this to stabilize ourselves as an economy and as a place. And it's going to take at least 2 years to recover. So that's what I was referring to. I do a lot of work around strategic planning and strategic decision making. And you've got to have a framework in order to be able to understand the context of the problem and identify critical factors. And that's what we need another 2 months of this to do. And then we can really begin to establish a plan for how we're going to proceed and then carry it out. And so that's what I'm referring to when I say those benchmarks.
Thank you. So Lisa, we're in the midst of this, and you've got significant small business experience. What is a small business person, what should they be doing right now as you reflect on your own career and your own experiences?
Yeah, before I was at Cox, I worked in a small business for 14 years and started it and raised the capital to get it going. Did that for 14 years and then we sold that business. But I think my father gave me my best lesson as being a small business owner, and that is to survive. You have to survive long enough to get through difficult periods, and that's really tough. I mean, there's many nights I have struggled with, am I going to make payroll, this month or this week? Not at Cox, a different kind of company, but when I was in a small business, certainly that was the case. And I just kept thinking that every single day I've got to get up and I've got to solve problems, because every business has problems, whether you're big or small. It's the companies that can solve the problems that win. Now, there's a lot of challenges and things that are unprecedented that small businesses and big businesses alike have never experienced. But again, the principle of survival, being able to get up every day and continue to solve whatever problem is facing you. I think that's the critical DNA that entrepreneurs and small business people have to get through these really crazy times. And that's thinking creatively. Anything you can come up with that you can discuss with someone, whether that is deferring payments or structuring something differently or talking to vendors differently or finding a way to connect with customers differently. I mean, everything that's outside of the box is in the box now. So I would say that would be, from my experience as a small business owner, the key to the whole game. The whole puzzle is, do you have what it takes to survive, and can you stay creative long enough to get through this?
Tom, let's talk about creativity. I know you've had a creative career. You've been in customer service positions for years. What would you say if you're running a small business right now, Tom? What's the most important thing for me to keep in mind?
Well, great question, Dave. I know I have some thoughts about that later in the discussion, but I would say to you that kind of where Lisa went, we have got to make sure at this day and time, the great thing is we're humans. We want to interact. We want to get out. We want to shop. We want to go to the restaurants. That's slowly happening, but I think those business owners that are serving customers, just make sure that you create that wow for your customer. I think it's critical right now because I think we're seeing that people want to get out and shop and do those things. We just got to make sure that it's a safe environment and also deliver the wow. Like Lisa said, I'm so optimistic about this. We will look back. This is probably it's the worst I've ever seen, and I think my parents and their parents. But we will look at what we come out of this, and I think as a country, as a globe, the lessons learned and the way we've come together to care for each other, again, listening, but really caring for each other and watching your business and making sure, as Lisa pointed out, you've got to find solutions. There's always going to be something thrown your way that you didn't plan for, but it can be solved with creative solutions. So that's what I'm taking away from this, whether I'm not in a small business, but I've been there, and that would be the advice I would give.
Thank you. We got 2 minutes left in our first section here. Mark, I'm going to come back to you, and we have had the conversation about finding solutions. I know you have shared with me the need for small business to have conversations with vendors and suppliers and landlords. Let's discuss that and learn what you think the objectives there would be.
Well, I want to pick up on what Tom was saying. We talk about being creative. We talk about having to survive. Small business, if you're a large business, you're a balance sheet driven entity. You're a small business, you're a cash driven entity. And cash is the blood that allows you to survive. And so the question is, what are you doing to be able to generate that cash? And in situations like this where customers have alternatives and they are extremely discretionary with their spending, how do you create the best value? And this is a value proposition in a competitive advantage situation. What are you going to do that differentiates yourself? A little bit to what Lisa was talking about too. I think small businesses have to stop and think, because it may require them to pivot. It may require them to change their value proposition or to change their business model, because they're listening to what their core loyal customers say, and they're going to have to react to that. And it may mean they have to change. It's not what you think that matters. It's what those people that you rely on to spend their money for your service or your product that matters. And what used to matter may not matter anymore to them. And you've got to be able to do that. So this is a theme we all three of us are spouting here. But I think value proposition is huge. Differentiating yourself and making sure that you're driving something that's relevant for your customer. And you got to go beyond simply knowing who they are. You got to know what their values are and make sure you're aligned.
That's a great segue to our first break here. Our next section, we're going to discuss the customer. First, please enjoy these messages from our sponsors, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you to today's sponsors. Title sponsor, Gray and Osborne McFamilies. Gold sponsors, Acacia IT, Arizona Daily Star, El Conquistador Tucson, a Hilton Resort, Pima Federal Credit Union, Roche Tissue Diagnostics.
Our future is that we intend to be able to move and innovate at light speed, to lead the world in new ideas and new solutions, to explore whole new ways of thinking. Innovation is a collective process. It's an engagement process. It involves hundreds of people around a single thing, thousands of people around a big thing, hundreds of thousands of people around big ideas.
The year, 1951. 16 Tucson teachers pooled together $84 and founded Pima Federal Credit Union. Through the years, Pima has helped build Tucson into the community it is today. Unlike national banking chains, we're not for profit, which means we can offer lower fees and better interest rates. To this day, we remain committed to the success of our neighbors. Visit us to explore how together we can help you reach your financial goals. Pima Federal Credit Union. Smart, simple, personal.
Welcome back. Before we resume, we want to thank members of the Oro Valley Town Council, Mayor Joe Winfield, Vice Mayor Melanie Barrett, Council members Joyce Jones-Ivy, Rhonda Pena, Josh Nicholson, Bill Rodman, and Steve Solomon for joining us today, as well as District 11 Senator and Chamber Member Senator Vince Leach. And in fact, we want to thank all of our elected leaders and public servants who are guiding us through difficult times. We'd also like to thank our Chamber Platinum member, the Arizona Daily Star, Tucson.com, our Gold members, Acacia IT and El Conquistador Tucson, our Diamond members, Roche Tissue Diagnostics and Pima Federal Credit Union, and our Silver members, Northwest Healthcare, Hughes Federal Credit Union, Sierra Tucson, and Tucson Local Media. This next segment is about customers, and I've had a great time speaking with Tom Hebner about some of the experiences from earlier in his career. Tom, I believe, managed a Nordstrom store in Portland as a young man, and he had a visit from John Nordstrom, who is the founder of the company. And Tom, a great story. I want you to share that with us, please, and tell our guests what you learned from that experience.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Quite a while ago, I was in my 20s, I was given the downtown Portland store to manage from a maintenance standpoint. And as Dave just mentioned, John Nordstrom would commonly come down and visit the store. And one of the times he came down, he said, "Tom, can I show you something?" Took me over to the water fountain in men's suits and showed me the arc of the water was about 1 inch high. And he said, "I like it to be about 2.5 inches high so the customer doesn't have to struggle to get a drink." And I, of course, adjusted that. Another time he was in, months later, he came in and he was up in the cafe and he showed me the blinds and said, Tom, I like the blinds set up at about a 90-degree angle so the sun doesn't come into the customer's eyes. And he showed me, he adjusted it, and then there was a place to hang the rod so that people couldn't readjust it and mess it up. But both those experiences, as Dave said, I was a young man. I was responsible for the maintenance of the downtown Portland Nordstrom store. I took pride in that. But I was really moved to see this man cared about the customer. He didn't get a complaint. He actually was looking for issues and making sure that his customer would not experience that. And it completely changed. It flipped my thinking about being proactive, about customer service, not waiting for someone to complain, really knowing your business, knowing your store or your building, and making sure that it's safe, secure, it provides the right experience to the customer. And that has carried me through my entire career. And it was really life-changing for me.
Lisa, we're all entering the market again out there pursuing goods and services. I wonder what that experience has been like for you, both as a business leader and as a customer, and maybe you could share some experiences that you've had going out and doing business again.
Yeah, well, I can tell you from a business perspective, building off what Tom said, the customers are being very patient. They've been very patient as we've tried to figure this out, how to serve them, how to enter their home safely, how to keep the virus at bay, keep our employees safe. So for anyone who's watching, that's one of our customers, thank you. It's really been really something to behold, to see how kind customers have been to our employees. They've tried to figure out how to do the job in this new environment. From my perspective, I guess the first time I really ventured out was to get my hair cut, right? That seems to be what everybody needed to do. And I was pretty nervous about it. A friend of ours owns a salon. We wanted to support her. She'd been completely out of business. And so she said she was going to use all the CDC protocols and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, well, if I'm not comfortable when I go there, I just won't go in there. And sure enough, I went in, and this business owner who's never done this before had all the proper safety, conditions in terms of sanitation. We all wore masks. I mean, it was a very, actually kind of a welcoming environment. I mean, we were all in it together. And Jessica, she owns a business called Salon downtown. And, she just had her act together. She had the social distancing. I mean, it was great and not scary. And so I'm getting my haircut this weekend, actually, at 2:00 on Saturday. But I haven't gone to a restaurant at this point. And right now, unfortunately, with what's happening with COVID in our community, we're really trying to encourage our employees to really, really pay attention to their personal responsibility around protecting themselves. So this thing's going to ebb and flow. But I think, the basic fundamentals of masks when you're out in public, social distancing, washing of the hands, that type of stuff is going to be here for a long time. So as a regular citizen, as a consumer, I've been going to the grocery store for my parents. I'm not letting them go out at this point. And, I mask up and I try to avoid the 6 feet barrier and do the things that are going to make other people feel comfortable as well. So I found that most people are wearing masks that I have bumped into. But there's still folks out there that I don't think it matters, but it does. So I guess that's been my experience with work and from a personal perspective.
Let me follow up with you, Lisa, for a second. Is this a time when the customer has a renewed and more important voice? And I want to hear what Mark and Tom think about that as well. Is it time for us as customers to speak up?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, there's been, like I said, the customer is just so appreciative for the businesses that are able to give them services that they need at this time. If you can imagine homeschooling your children and not having the proper or enough bandwidth in your home to work from home and school your children at home, and how desperate you are to make sure you can get that. So there's a level of appreciation that customers are expressing right now, but they're going to get used to this and go back to saying, okay, I understand we're in a new environment, but I still have these expectations. And so I think as we move from the phase of appreciation to expectation, and then how are you going to behave in the future, it's an absolute perfect time for customers to be defining and redefining how they want to be met in terms of commerce.
Mark, let me ask you about this. Do you think that this moment is changing the way that we relate to the customer? Is that relationship now different because of the pandemic and the moment that we're in?
It shouldn't be. I mean, the only reason we exist in business is to provide a good or a service to a customer. And so the customer, I think Tom was referring to this before in the Nordstrom mentality. And the other companies he's worked for as well, and I know Cox as well, it is customer centric because that's why you exist. I think what is happening is behaviors are changing. And what we don't know yet is whether those customer behaviors are short-term, or as Lisa suggests, longer-term expectations. In fact, they become the normative. They're not now. We don't know that. In business many times thinks of their consumer population in terms of simple demographics. And we have gotten away from that substantially in the major corporations in particular, but small business do not understand the difference between demographics and psychographics. And psychography has to do with people's values and their behaviors. And as we emerge out of this, it's beginning to really identify who your key core customer is and understanding their psychographic makeup and what their values are and what their behaviors are, because they are likely to change. Our psychographic profile changes as we move through life. But this may have a profound effect on it. And so, to answer your question directly, absolutely it's key. It should always be key. I think in order for you, especially as a small business, to know your customer better, you're going to have to do more than simply know who they are, know how old they are, know where they live. You're going to have to get down to values. And back to talking and listening, I think that's the way, one of the ways that you're going to have to.
I'd like to add to that a little bit.
Please, Lisa.
What Mark just said. Something that we have experienced. When you're whether you're a big business or a small business, when you're doing acts of kindness, when you're showing what you're made of, what your fiber is as an organization, how your people show up, how they behave, how you behave, people are remembering this more deeply now because there's so much stress. And so I think everyone is taking a look at your brand and saying, is that a brand that I'm going to continue to buy as things get normal? Do I feel good about, it's not just because it's my local restaurant. They were doing something when I was struggling. And I think you can't step away from also the social justice things that are happening also outside of the pandemic and how your company is responding internally and externally to racism, institutional racism, your employees' feelings around race, discrimination, and inclusion. This is also top of mind for customers right now. So the pandemic has made everybody slow down a little bit, and now they're listening more intently to some of these other conversations that are having profound effects on how consumers are thinking about businesses that they decide to stay with tomorrow and the next day.
Tom, if we could stick with this for a second. What Lisa says is really critical. Businesses exist within a context, and that context is a community. And it may be a virtual community or it may be a physical community. But businesses achieve their key resource from the local community within which they operate and exist. That's their employees and their customers. What has happened is a expanded need for empathy in truly beginning to understand the essence of community. Because coming out of this, what we want is the community that we had and sought to remain in place. And the only way that's going to happen in this environment is through empathy and forbearance, kindness and understanding. And that's not been the normative in terms of management paradigms. I think one of the things that is going to happen coming out of this is we haven't had a new management theory in several decades. And I think what happened during the last recession is we had this profound effect created by technology that caused all sorts of disruptive business models. The iPhone, the smartphone, a lot of business models. I think what's going to happen coming out of this is we are going to develop new management theories. That will be the big innovation. I heard my boss's voice and Dr. Crow during your ads. And we're thinking about how we innovate our way out of this, and it may be through medical, but I think it's going to be how we conduct ourselves as people, as businesses, as communities. That is going to be one of the big changes.
I would agree, and if I could jump in there,
Please.
I see Dave pointing, but let me just give you, I love real life examples. So I'm the cook here, so I do a lot of grocery shopping. I've got about 4 grocery stores close to my area, different grocery chains. One that I was in just not too long ago, just the other day, there was a sanitizer station outside. All the carts are pushed into a big old heap. You're supposed to spray your cart with a spray. There's no rags or anything. Now, so you know, that's completely different than the 3 other grocers that I go to. And then my experience in the store, I hadn't been to this store before, so I couldn't find cottage cheese. I asked a employee if they could tell me where the cottage cheese was, and they had no clue. And not only did they have no clue, they said, sorry, and walked away. So I thought, okay, I'll find it. And then I had the same thing happen later on. I can't even remember what I was looking for. And another gentleman said, I'm a cashier, I really don't know where these things are. And he left. So I use those examples, right? I'm not picking on anyone, but don't let that happen. Don't let your employees not know where your product is. Don't make your customer go find a cart and a bottle and clean their cart themselves. I will tell you, I'm going to these other stores that do those things well. And so back to what Mark and Lisa are talking about, this is a time to step up your game. It's not a time to kind of relax and go, well, I hope everything goes well. So I would just say, again, I'm not picking on, I wouldn't tell you the store, but those just happened 2 days ago. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to go back there. So if you're an employer, think about that and think about those interactions with your customer. They're key to your business. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. A minute left. Anybody have a closing remark about customers and customer service? Don't all jump at once. What about this, Tom? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Mark.
I say, give them what they need or want, even if it's not exactly what you do, if you can help them.
That's wise advice. Tom, well, I'll close with you. You've had this career in customer service. Is it different now? Is it more or less important than it's always been?
Yeah, I think as I just demonstrated with my own experience, I think it's more important. I think people are going to demand, it's different in that it's more about sanitization, cleanliness, but it's also back to what Mark said, it's about caring. I mean, really, you know, one thing I'll tell you I loved about Nordstrom, this was their philosophy, they would hire really nice people and teach them how to sell. They didn't do the reverse. They didn't hire really good salespeople and teach them how to be nice. So coming out of this pandemic, I think we got to think about our employees, making sure that we've hired the right employee who has that sincerity and care that Mark talked about. And then we educate them how to sell the product, so to speak. And back to what I said earlier, I think sanitization, safe distancing is going to be key. People, whether it's real or not, and we're seeing the numbers in Arizona, it is real, that social distancing is effective, it works. We need to all adhere to that, but some businesses are not doing it as well as others. So focus on that. We'll get through this, but customers are going to demand it, back to your question, Dave.
Great. We're going to leave that subject for right now. We'll come back and talk a little bit more about it in our third segment. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us. Please enjoy these commercial announcements.
Thank you to today's sponsors. Silver sponsors, AAA Landscape, Arizona State University, Brightview Landscape Services, Cox, Fishkind, Bakewell, Maltzman, Hunter and Associates, Hughes Federal Credit Union, Lloyd Construction Company, MHC Healthcare, Meritage Homes.
It's gonna look a little different in here. Your favorite spot might not be exactly where it used to be. Being next in line might feel a little less like next in line. And our smiles might come with a little extra shine. But McDonald's is ready to take your order as safely as we can.
At times like these, it's important to know that you're staying safe at home. Visiting Angels is committed to your safety and comfort. Our compassionate caregivers provide one-on-one essential home care services for our senior loved ones. At Visiting Angels, personal home care is our passion. We're here for you.
Visiting Angels, America's choice in home care.
Get the healthcare access you need and deserve from the comfort of your own home. Now with MHC Healthcare Televisit. Televisit is just like a regular appointment, except you interact with your provider using the internet and your smartphone, tablet, or computer. Follow these simple steps to begin. Make an appointment, check your email or text, click on the link. Televisit is a convenient and effective way to take care of your health today.
We are MHC Healthcare, here for you.
MHC Healthcare.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Before we continue, we want to thank our Chamber Copper members, Bayer, Casa de la Luz, Desert Diamond Casinos and Entertainment, the Golder Ranch Fire District, 1AZ Credit Union, Pima Community College, Splendido at Rancho Vistoso, State Farm Wendy Wise, the Tucson Roadrunners Hockey Club, Tucson Federal Credit Union, and Vantage West Credit Union. We're going to talk now about how things have changed for us, maybe in the moment and perhaps permanently, but I want to go back to our guests on a subject that we just left with regard to customers. Yesterday, Governor Ducey gave local leadership, mayors, county supervisors, the ability to mandate masks when people are out in public. I'm going to ask a question. From a business perspective, should that even be a thing that you got to ask or be required? Shouldn't that be a standard practice for public-facing businesses? Who wants to take that on? And by the way, agree with me.
I'm happy to. I will tell you that we have already had those policies in place for our businesses and for our employees. So if an employee, we have a whole protocol to even get into one of our buildings, even though 85% of our employees are working from home and have been since the middle of March. That involves taking their temperatures, signing in, giving us a personal health check, and then providing that information to the company. But we wear masks in the building unless you're in a private office, in which you can remove your mask. Our retail stores and any customer-facing employees have been wearing personal protection equipment since the middle of March. So we really believe in it. But what we have found since this surge in Arizona has taken place is that our employees are not contracting COVID at work. They're contracting it in their personal life. So they're safer at work than they are when they're at home because they're not using the same diligence when they're going out and about now that the economy is open. So I think it's perfectly reasonable for governments and public health people to encourage or make a mandate for a while we're in this spike for people to wear masks when they go into the grocery store. When I go into the grocery store to shop for my parents and there's people in there that aren't wearing masks, I worry that if I were to contract it and give it to my parents, right? So I think right now it would be in our best interest to have that be something that we all do, and we should be happy to do it. Our business has been doing it. We wear personal protective equipment in the homes. We just now recently started going back into houses. We stopped going into houses completely when we try to get our arms around how to make it work. So I think they're doing the right thing, and I think it's good to look at it from a local perspective.
Tom, what about at Roche Tissue Diagnostics? I know you've got people working in close proximity to one another. I presume they wear masks. Do you have to tell them, or do they just know it?
No, we like Lisa, we have temperature screening. No one comes on site without being temperature screened, given a mask, and we actually created a day badge so that they've been through the temperature scanning. There's about 600 employees, 11 buildings, so you can't keep track of everyone, but we do as best we can. And to your question, believe it or not, this has been now over a month ago. There were people not wearing masks. They would put it on and then take it off when they're in the areas like cafe, et cetera. And we had to actually say it's mandatory, just what Lisa said. I mean, there were some people saying, well, you said it's advised. So we did change that, if you will, to say it is mandatory. So now I understand too why the governor and mayors are asking for the same thing. You got to kind of tell people to do certain things or they won't do them. But yes, we're doing the exact same things Lisa is at her company. And the same thing is absolutely true. We have had no COVID cases from our workplace. It's been all from their personal lives. And even that's been a small number, but it still has not happened on our campus, which we're proud to say.
Mark, beaming in from Tempe, Arizona at Arizona State University. Mark, as an employer, do I need to communicate with my employees that when you're in front of the public, you wear a mask and you're communicating that you care? Isn't that what we need to be doing as we re-interface with customers?
Well, there's a couple of things here, Dave. One of them is, unfortunately, this has become a divisive subject matter, and certain people jump up and down and claim that you're violating their individual rights. And I find that argument nonsense, frankly. We've had this idea of no shoes, no shirt, no service for a long time. If you show up at the country club and there's a dress code, people don't complain about it. There's lots of examples of that. In this particular case, this is about people's health and wellness. And if not careful, it affects the entire community. So I don't know why this should be so divisive. It's not a huge inconvenience. And what we know is that wearing the mask doesn't necessarily protect you, it protects others from you. So it's a recognition, to your point, Dave, that you care about the people in your community. And I think it would be, I wish that the governor had mandated. For all sorts of reasons, he doesn't want to do that. It's beyond the scope of this conversation.
Yeah.
But I think that business and people in general like to know what the rules are. And part of the fog we're in is a lack of consistent application of ideas and a lack of rules. And that just makes it harder to do business. It's easier when you show up and your employer says, you have to do this. It's not discretionary, and you do it. And if the entire community would be that way, I think this would go much quicker and would be much easier to manage.
Lisa, you want to chime in on that? It's divisive in the conversations among people of our state, whether masks should be required, whether they're effective. They got to be effective at some level, right?
Well, I mean, I look at a business like Costco, for example, and they mandated masks on their customers as well as their employees. And they kind of went through a learning phase there. And at first they'd let people in, and then they said, no mask, you're not coming in here. And they got flack from a certain population of people. And Costco's corporate response was, then don't shop here, because we're going to protect our employees and we're going to protect our customers. So you are not entering this establishment unless you're wearing a mask. And so I think, if your values are, I'm going to protect my employees and my clients and my customers, then mandating a mask is just living your values, because we know from the medical professionals that a mask is a good barrier to spreading this disease. And it allows you to have your business, and it allows you for your employees to feel safe and come to work. So there's so many reasons why it's positive. I feel like I want to write on my mask, why aren't you wearing a mask? So that anyone who's not wearing one, they'll see it. But I'm not going to get into a fist fight, at Safeway. But I just think about my parents, and it really kind of hurts my feelings that other people don't care about my family enough to just, it's not like you can't get a mask these days. There's plenty of them out there. So yeah. I'm just going to try to practice my own personal responsibility around this and encourage my employees to do the same.
Yeah, and I would add to what Lisa said, Eric Walk, our doctor on site, has reminded me, well, all of us, he said, my mask protects you, your mask protects me. And I got to tell you, the first time he said it, I didn't quite understand. I thought you just wore a mask to protect yourself. But that's the intent of the mask, is it's to protect the other person in case you exhale or sneeze. But I think back to what Lisa said, it is too bad that we've got to mandate and tell people this, but we got to protect each other. And again, we've seen the numbers, so let's do what we need to do to keep these numbers at bay, if you will, or flatline.
We're halfway through this segment, and I want to have some conversations about whether or not we are being changed forever or for the long term. Tom, you've had several career experiences with employees working at home, and when the pandemic struck, many of us, not everybody, but many of us found ourselves working at home. We were forced to do it. When you'd had that experience in your career previously, what happened? What did you learn? And let me ask, are we going to be working at home more frequently, permanently? Some folks yes, some no. Elaborate for us, please.
Yeah, sure, Dave. I think I shared this with Dave, gosh, it's probably 15 years ago. I head up a group to look at telecommuting, is what the term was called back then, and how we could take our production workers and put them in a telecommute role at home. We took, I can't remember the numbers, it was around 80 employees, moved them to home. We took the most productive employees. We didn't just say anyone could go, because I think Lisa said it earlier. Back then, they didn't trust. I'm just going to say that the corporation didn't trust. So they took their best producers, moved them to home, and found out that they were more productive, which was astonishing. And, the CEO asked me, which all I was doing was trying to put the program together to make sure that we could make it work from a technology standpoint. It wasn't to measure productivity. That wasn't my role. But I said to him that I really believe it's because people can work when they want to work. And when they plug in, there's no disruptions. They really can just get the work done. But then to your point, Dave, or to your question, what I worry, because now we've been forced to that, right? Everyone on the planet now is working virtually, been forced into it. I think there's a lot of people really loving it and loving the productivity that they've gained from it. But what I wonder about that, and I shared this with Mark the other day, there are innovative moments and discussions and conversations that happen not from viewing a monitor and coming into a meeting virtually, It's from bumping into a person and you have an idea, which sparks another idea, which, right? We've all seen it happen. I think we've got to get that back. And I think people are, many are wanting to have that more, I hate to call it that, but a more physical, less virtual and monitors, but having that physical interaction. Because your question to me, and I shared it with you a bit ago, you know, I'm glad I'm human. I need sight, smell, interactions. I walk the site. Most of you may or may not know. I go in every day. I'm operating the site. I need to know what's going on. I'll get on virtual for an entire day, and then I get off and I walk out into the areas and I go, Dave, how are you? Bill, Lisa. And I try to inject some passion and they go, what's going on, Tom? I go, I have been on a monitor all day. I need interaction. And they laugh, you know. So I hope I'm going to answer your question. I think there's lots of folks who are loving this virtual world. You can tell I'm not an introvert, I'm an extrovert. So I think introverts are loving it. I think extroverts are going crazy. So I think we're going to find some type of balance here coming out of it for business and for the employees, because I think it's working. Back to your question, it is working.
Mark, you and I have talked about the need for informal and formal networks where, as we're forced into this remote working environment, we still got to have some connection to one another. Let's talk about that, please, if you would.
Yeah, so I did some work, it's almost 20 years ago now, looking at answering the question of what makes a sustainable community. And the end of that work was in understanding that a sustainable community is a resilient community. So this is directly applicable to what's going on right now. And resiliency has to do with the ability to absorb shocks, right? And this is an unexpected shock. And so how can we absorb this shock? And what I discovered in looking at communities that survived significant shocks is they were able to do so through networks. And the strength of those networks, and there's formal and informal, there's public and there's private. And it's the combination of those that allow places to absorb those shocks and not just survive, but prosper. So, example, your organization is a perfect example of a formal network, right? You're bringing people together, you're providing advice, you're providing guidance, answering questions, making sure that people know what's going on. Churches, government, there's lots of them, including the network you have in your own community. Homeowners Association is not typically seen as a network. It's seen as a fascist control organization. It is one of the best networks that we have that is a private, semi-formal network. So I think networks are important, and I would encourage everybody to seek out their networks and rely on them, because others need to rely on you as well. And it is that collective, right? This idea that community is a collection of humanity designed in order to support our life and our ability to prosper. And so that's what a sustainable community is. It's a resilient one, and resiliency depends on social connectivity, and social connectivity depends on those networks. So when we talked about it, that's what I was referring to. The networks can be internal to an organization. Cox has their own internal networks, Roche does, but it's also all of our individual networks, our business networks, that become really important.
Hey, Dave.
Yes.
Two comments on that. One is in terms of people working from home and the productivity. What's been kind of different with this pandemic is the homeschooling aspect. The ability for our universities, our middle and high schools, our K-12 system to be able to figure out how to manage bringing the students back because the pressure and stress that have been put on particularly female employees, to be perfectly honest. I've had conversations, and our male employees are like so appreciative of their wives doing the schooling, when the wives also work. So although I think some of the dads are engaging a little differently now, maybe that's something that's been a silver lining for these families. But when you've got the homeschooling on top of working from home, on top of two parents there with dual careers, it's a different pressure than you just being able to work from home as an employee who decides Monday, Wednesday, Friday I'm in the office, Tuesday, Thursday I'm working from home. So I think that has to really be figured out. Same with daycare and childcare in order for it to work long term. I will tell you that as this thing stretches on, even productive employees within that construct of having a lot of other things going on in the home other than them being able to work quietly in their home office, they want to come back. And we're not letting them come back. So there's going to be a time here where we're saying, I'm sorry, it's not safe to come back. We haven't figured out exactly how to make that work. You have to continue to work from home. Now it's summer vacation and there are no camps are open. There's no church camp, there's no school camp. And so we're still got these kids at home and parents trying to figure it out. So I think that's something that's going to make it tougher long term to keep the productivity high. Yes, there are employees that want to stay in a hybrid environment, but they want to do it by choice, not by force. So that has to evolve too. And I would say the comment to the connectivity of your networks, to me, that's a huge thing. I completely agree with Mark 1,000%. The difference today is you've got to be so intentional about it. You have to get up and you have to say, what are my networks? Then list them. And who in those organizations do I need to maintain relationships with? How do I expand my relationships? How do I build that network? I'm not going to just bump into somebody at a cocktail party or at a gala at La Paloma. That's not going to happen. So at least for a while. So that intentionally sitting down and saying, how do I connect? And then deciding, do I do Teams? Do I do Zoom? Do I just pick up the phone? How am I intentionally connecting? So it takes a different skill set and it takes more time. If I go to a board meeting in the past, 3 months ago, I go to a board meeting and I can interact with 20 people pretty much in 30 minutes. I can't do that. I can't interact with 20 people in 30 minutes if I want to have a meaningful exchange with them, because I have to schedule a meeting. I have to make a call. I've got to make sure that, so it's harder and it takes more time. And it's a little frustrating. It's not as easy.
Appreciate that. And here's to the working moms out there everywhere who are asked to do extraordinary duties every day, but even more so during this moment. We're at a break point here. We're going to come back and wrap it up here in a few minutes. Please enjoy these commercial breaks, and thank you again for being with us.
Thank you to today's sponsors. Silver sponsors: Northwest Healthcare, Scarrett Group, State Farm Wendy Wise, Town West, TEP, Tucson Local Media, Vantage West Credit Union, Visiting Angels, WaFd Bank.
Neighbors, more than just people next door. Good ones are indispensable. They look out for us, look after us, have our back at a moment's notice. They're quick to lend a hand or a hammer. They are trusted allies when times get tough. For more than 100 years, through prosperity and challenges, we've done our best to be that reliable next-door neighbor. Your neighbor, WaFd Bank.
We love live events. We love the energy they create, the engagement they deliver, the questions that they answer, the conversations that change our world. They bring us together, bring us closer. But in today's world, there are new challenges for us to rise to. Getting together in the same space isn't always the right solution. Welcome to EventStream by Scarrett Group. evolving communications to keep pace with an ever-changing world. The event stream teams have years of experience in broadcasting hundreds of global live events, and will work with you to deliver some of the most effective communication you have ever had. Our secure and intuitive live streaming technology offers you a global event reach, helping you communicate to audiences from 10 to 10,000. Your delegates can tune in on any device from any location, live or on demand. From our secure event portal sites, your participants can see the presentations, hear the messages, watch the presenters and engage with the speakers. There is no loss of interactivity. Knowledge checks and live Q&A allow your presenters instant feedback on their messages, and when it's over, they can see it again and again and again. Whatever challenges your meeting faces, we have the solution. EventStream by Scarrett Group, keeping the world's communication flowing. Now, let's talk.
Thanks for staying with us on this Thursday afternoon. Before our last segment, I want to thank our chamber staff, our Working Mom Events Director, Kristen Sharp, our Business Development Director, Martin Reichgott, our Member Services Director, Dwayne Macklin, as well as our Chamber Board of Directors. This session is being recorded and will soon make a link available for your viewing pleasure. There's a subject that we didn't get to in that last segment that I want to talk about. The blue trucks with the gray trucks with the blue streak, and I'm referring to the Amazon trucks as well as FedEx and UPS, never seen so many in our lives. We are buying things online. We may continue to do that online, and it calls into question what's the future of brick and mortar retail. Tom, you come from that world. You've had a lot of experience there. Does brick and mortar retail have a future?
Sorry, Dave, I was muted. I was muted, sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, it's a little bit sad, right? I grew up in retail. So what we're watching with many store closures, including, I think it's Pier 1 just down the street is going out of business. And it is sad. I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think there's still a need for people to be able to touch, feel, smell, try on. They're going to be probably more conscious of, yes, the environment, but also price. So you got to be competitive. But I would say to you, because I do online shopping just like everyone, and I do quite a bit of it lately. But for me, it's just a transaction, right? I get on there, I order it, it comes, whatever, 3-4 days later, ding dong, there you go, open the box, right? But it's not an experience. And I think that's where we have an opportunity. And I say we, I don't have a retail business, but because I really believe in the retail, the actual consumer, where you have a salesperson working with a consumer who is an expert in their field and they help you navigate through product. So I think that will continue to be, but you're going to have to be really good at it. As I mentioned, I think Nordstrom is, but even they are struggling as anyone who's following them. They're trying to figure this out too, because it's very expensive to run a brick and mortar building and operate it and pay staff and everything else when you can do it, like you mentioned, Amazon, and they don't have any of that. It's all just distribution. So hopefully I'm answering your question. I think it will survive. There are those who will want to touch, feel, try on, but it's going to have to be really hyper-focused. And I think Lisa knows this from her business side. You got to be really good at the numbers and be able to manage it with labor and the cost of the space and do it really well.
Mark, you're the real estate professor on this call, and you're analyzing the market, and the market is uncertain at the very least. What do you see happening with commercial real estate? Are there sectors that are going to struggle? Are there sectors that are going to benefit?
Well, let me, the answer is yes. So it depends. I mean, real estate exists as the physical space within which society functions, right? And so as society changes, as technology causes changes, as behaviors change, how we use real estate is going to change. It's just the nature of it. And, to Tom's point, retail serves a particular purpose in society. The business of retailing, okay, is fine. The retail real estate component of that is not fine. And what has happened with the pandemic is simply accelerated a trend that was well underway. One of the things that has made matters worse is retail was shifted from goods and services, hard goods, soft goods, to food, beverage, entertainment, hospitality. And because of the pandemic, if you were in that segment, food, beverage, hospitality, and entertainment, you're 100% vacant. So it used to be who's your food lineup, and that's been totally disrupted. So one of the things that we don't know about retail as we emerge out of this is how do those segments, which were our primary drivers around experiential retail, going to change? And we're not completely sure of that yet. It is likely to be disrupted significantly, but there are segments. You know what? You own data centers, good for you. You own certain kinds of industrial real estate, you're doing terrific. Grocery store anchored centers, you're doing pretty good. The rest of your tenancy, maybe not so good. Housing, we have not seen the effect of this, as I mentioned earlier on in this conversation yet. We're gonna have to wait till the stimulus stops to see what the effect is on housing. But so far, we continue to see prices inching upward, and the reason for that is because inventories continue to go down. We will have an affordability issue. That was a big concern. We are going to have a bigger affordability issue, I think, starting in the second half of this year, as those stimulus checks stop showing. And so it is going to depend on the segment that we're talking about. And unfortunately, for cities and towns who generate a lot of the revenue that they use for providing public service, they come from bed tax, they come from sales tax, transaction privilege tax receipts. Those have been hammered. And so we're going to have effects on public services and public real estate as well, parks, other social support services, et cetera, which will be impacted. That's really going to be tough on communities, I think. So those are my thoughts, Tom. We can dig in deeper on individual segments.
Thanks. Let's wrap it up here. Lisa, I had thrown to you earlier before this event today. I wanted to close and talk in a little summary about what you're learning in this moment, and are you optimistic about the future?
Well, I guess I'm learning. I love the quote on resiliency. That can you handle the shock? I mean, that's something I'm going to be thinking about a lot. Mark, thank you for that. And I think we can. I think we have a resilient community. I don't think that the civil unrest has been very helpful. That was another unexpected, pile-on that we have to weed through and figure out so that we can come out the other end of this closer together as a community and solidifying our values. But I think Tucson, Southern Arizona, has a lot of opportunity in industrial space. The desire to have manufacturing come back to the United States and the pull of that, I think Tucson might be well positioned for that. Our lack of density could be something very positive for us. The telecommuting, the ability for people to work virtually and live anywhere they want, I think could benefit a beautiful community like Tucson. So I think there's a lot of opportunity that's coming. From my perspective, I think this is not my flow to be in my house, not out with people. So I wouldn't call myself really an extrovert. I like to have some downtime, but forced downtime is not how I like to be. So this has personally been tough, and I know that's how a lot of my friends and colleagues feel as well. But I think the silver linings are that we're learning new technology, we're learning new ways to work, we're learning new ways to communicate. I mean, Zoom existed before everybody was using Zoom. So, like people that have family members all over the country used to call them on the cell phone or whatever, are now using Zoom to connect in different ways and stay close. So, I guess more to come in terms of what I'm learning on this journey. But all in all, I'm coping with it. I think that'd be the way I'd say it.
Are you optimistic, Lisa, about the future?
I am very optimistic about it. I mean, I think Southern Arizona has a lot of assets and a lot of puzzle pieces that are going to come together that we've been trying to figure out how they're all going to fit for many years. And we've done a lot of things coming into this pandemic in terms of our economy that has positioned us well to come back from this faster than other places. So, as long as I think we can all keep our optimism going somewhat in the same direction, I think we have a very good opportunity to take advantage as this thing gets tapped down.
Thank you. Mark Stapp from Tempe and ASU. What are you learning in this moment, and are you optimistic about the future?
So what am I learning? I get paid to study this kind of stuff. So economists love exogenous shocks because then they spend a whole bunch of time studying it. We were just about done studying the last recession, so all the economists are really excited because we're getting to study a new problem that we've not really seen before. I think what I'm learning is how society responds to these kinds of things. It's a really, really, really interesting time period. And we just don't know, Tom. So I have a lot still to learn. Am I optimistic? Yeah, absolutely, I'm optimistic. I mean, the human condition is such that we will find solutions to these. Will people be hurt? Yes. Will there be problems? Yes. Will we ultimately resolve? Yeah, absolutely. Specific to Tucson and Phoenix, we're new. We're relatively new metropolitan areas. I think that bodes well for us. We're shiny. We have new infrastructure. We have really strong economic underpinnings. We have really low inventories. The other thing, Phoenix metropolitan area in particular was hailed as the sprawl capital of the United States. I mean, we were derided by all the urban designers and planners and stuff. But yeah, who's laughing now? Because that low density is becoming really desirable. And when you look around the country, this movement from highly dense gateway cities to second tier and third tier cities is only going to benefit us. So I think those are all things that give me hope for this particular metropolitan area in Tucson as well. I think they will bode well. It's just going to take a while to get there.
Everybody who knows Tom Hebner knows he's an eternal optimist. Tom, what have you learned, and quantify your optimism, if you would?
Well, yeah, thanks, Dave. It's many of you don't know, but I was raised in a family of 9. I was in the middle. So what I learned, I think, from childhood and some tough times as a child, I am optimistic. It's in my blood. I've also, as a leader in many of the organizations I've been, and I've been confronted, or the company's been confronted with some pretty daunting challenges. I won't list them, but I mean really big problems. And every time went into that problem with optimism of what we can do together and really being passionate and caring about that. People tend to come with you. Not everybody, and I say this very, very straightforward. There are some who just don't. They're like, nah, the negative Nellies, and it's okay. But the majority will jump in when a leader is optimistic and knows that we can get through this and we just need to do it together. People I've never seen that not happen, where people don't pull together as whether it's a community or a business and really go after what they don't even know until they start uncovering each of those issues. It's happened every time throughout my life. So back to what Mark and Lisa said, I'm very fortunate. I moved from Seattle almost exactly a year ago, and it's a whole different beast in Seattle. It's dense. You've got all kinds of different values. The minute I got here, people are waving and saying hi, and I'm like, I don't even know them. So when I think about Tucson and Oro Valley, I'm like, now I'm even more optimistic because we have great people. We have a great community. People care about each other. Like I said, they keep waving. I still don't know who they are, but I love this whole family feel that you have here in Southern Arizona that I am extremely blessed, and I know that. So that's where I get my optimism.
There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, one more commercial break and we'll be back to close this up with you.
Thank you to today's sponsors. Copper sponsors, Golder Ranch Fire District, Uru Automotive.
Hi, this is Greg Durnan, your Chamber Chairman and CEO of Acacia IT. I'm watching companies pivot and change to meet the new business environment. We have been pushed to excel in areas we thought would take years to get to in a very short amount of time. Acacia IT is helping companies meet these challenges and change the way you do business. We're helping companies create new work environments for employees, retooling their IT staff, and supporting in-house IT departments by streamlining processes. You and your staff need security and support now more than ever. You do not want to go back to business as usual. Rather, change and evolve the way you do business. For companies ready to meet the challenge, we are ready for you. Let's go forward stronger and better.
Lately, we've all faced difficult choices. We sacrifice. We choose to stay home, to connect, not to be stuck in our fears. And when we choose each other, life gets better. We choose to be here when you need us, to support you during hard times. We choose strength and hope. We choose you.
When you bank with Hughes Federal Credit Union, you'll experience so much more out of life. You'll drive away with a low car payment with our one low rate. You'll realize your dream of owning a home. We get you more control over your future with our incredible rates and personalized service. Whether you want to open your first account or save for retirement, we'll be there. Visit Hughes Federal Credit Union at hughesfcu.org to learn more.
This is more than a bundle. It's more than a combo deal. It's not just stuff. This is your home, your car. And you want to give them the protection they deserve. With home and auto insurance. State Farm agents get it. It's why they're here.
Talk to State Farm agent Wendy Wise today.
Ladies and gentlemen, they can't hear you, but how about some virtual applause for our panelists, Lisa Lovallo of Cox, Mark Stapp of Arizona State University, and Tom Hebner of Roche Tissue Diagnostics. We're grateful to you for your time. We trust that you walk away with a few nuggets from this event to help you survive this moment and thrive beyond it. We're going to get through it together. Stay tuned for our last set of commercials. Take good care. Stay well, and may God bless you and yours.
Ready?
Ready.
There's a feeling that's hard to describe.
We're here.
The feeling when everything falls into place.
We're here.
The realization of all you'd envisioned.
We're here.
So much in life and business is finite, but your success is not. Nor are the memories of those who enjoy your landscape. At Brightview, we maintain the environments that define your property, the spaces where memorable moments and meaningful connections are made. For every first impression, every big moment, every big deal, and every goodbye, we're here. We're here when things go wrong, and we're here when things need to be just right. Giving you confidence in a service that makes you feel cared for, consistency that builds your trust, a world of resources at your fingertips, and a focus like you're the only one in the world. You see, at Brightview, we're passionate about nurturing your landscape. But the real reward is seeing how it benefits you. From water management to snow and ice services to tree care, enhancements, and beyond, we offer more than just landscape solutions. We deliver peace of mind by restoring safety, preserving the environment, and operating with the highest standards of corporate and social responsibility. Whenever you need us, wherever you need us, with locations across the country, and right here in your backyard. A partner you can count on to maintain your biggest moments and all the little ones in between. Because it's not just the first impression that matters, it's every impression. Brightview. We're here.